When we think of Gandalf, we picture the wise, grandfatherly figure with his staff and pointed hat. The wizard who guided hobbits, defeated Balrogs, and helped save Middle-earth from darkness. But before he became a legend, Gandalf had a history shrouded in mystery and darkness. A past so old, so strange, that even he barely remembered it. In this video, we'll investigate the dark history of Olorin, the being who would become Gandalf, and uncover the uncomfortable truths about his existence before his famous journey with the Fellowship. Before Gandalf was ever called a wizard, he existed in a realm beyond Middle-earth. In Valinor, the Undying Lands, he was known as Olorin. He was among the Maiar, the wisest of the Order, and was created by Ilúvatar before the music of the Ainur, existing at the beginning of time itself, among the Ainur who entered into Eir. Think about that for a moment. Gandalf existed before the world was fully created. He was present during the very foundations of reality. Not as a wizard, not as an old man, but as a being of pure spirit, one of the most powerful entities in all creation. He walked among the Vala themselves. He participated in the shaping of worlds. He possessed knowledge that mortal minds could scarcely comprehend. And yet, despite all this ancient power and wisdom, he would eventually be cast down into Middle-earth as a helpless old man. But here's where things get dark. In his youth, Olorin lived in Lórien, yet his ways often took him to Nienna, from whom he learned pity and patience. This detail is crucial. Gandalf didn't naturally possess compassion. He had to learn it. He had to be taught by Nienna, the Vala of sorrow and suffering, how to feel pity for others. The wizard who would become famous for his kindness was, in essence, being trained in empathy, like a child learning to speak. He had to be shaped, molded, corrected. For thousands upon thousands of years, Olorin sat at the feet of Nienna, absorbing the weight of the world's sorrow, learning how to mourn for the suffering of others. But this raises a disturbing question. Why did one of the most powerful beings in creation need such training? What did Olorin do before Nienna taught him to care? But there's something darker still. It is possible that Olorin came to Middle-earth in the Second Age, when he had conversations with Galadriel, though only those who are now gone could attest to the truth of this. Gandalf may have walked Middle-earth for thousands upon thousands of years before the events of The Lord of the Rings. He may have witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations, the destruction of kingdoms, the slow death of the world itself. And all the while, he did nothing to stop it. He watched as great cities crumbled into dust. He watched as proud kingdoms fell to shadow and despair. He watched as the servants of Sauron extended their dark reach across the land, and he remained silent. For ages he wandered, observing but never intervening. Some might say he was waiting for the right moment. Others might suggest he simply didn't care enough to act. The truth, perhaps, is far more troubling than either option. For millennia, Gandalf inhabited a strange twilight existence, not fully part of Valinor, yet not truly committed to Middle-earth. He was a hidden observer, watching the shadows grow longer across the lands, a ghost moving through the world, neither alive nor dead, neither engaged nor abandoned. During this time, he witnessed horrors that would have driven lesser beings to madness. He saw the corruption of men, the despair of elves, the slow, inexorable march of darkness consuming everything beautiful and good. Yet he remained distant, aloof, a silent watcher in the darkness, until the Valar finally commanded him to act. And even then, he resisted. During the Third Age, while Sauron's dark spirit of malice was increasing over Middle-earth, the Valar chose the Istari from among the Maiar. Manwë selected Olorin, who at first did not wish to go, as he feared Sauron. However, Manwë said that was all the more reason why he should go. Let us imagine for a moment what that conversation might have been like. The king of the Valar commanding one of his most powerful servants. Olorin trembling before him, confessing his fear, his weakness, his desperate unwillingness to face his ancient adversary. And Manwë's response not to comfort him, but to send him anyway, to force him into the very situation he dreaded most. Let's pause on this. The wisest of all the Maiar, a being who had existed since the creation of the world, a spirit of such power that few in Middle-earth could comprehend his true nature. And yet, he was afraid. Terrified, in fact. So frightened of Sauron, another Maiar like himself, that he refused the mission outright. He didn't hesitate. He didn't consider it. He refused. This was an act of open defiance against the will of the Valar themselves. And yet Manwë did not punish him. Instead, he sent him anyway, stripping away even his choice in the matter. The Valar agreed to send 5 of their number to Middle-earth in the form of old men to bring aid and guidance to the races there. Though they possessed great power, far more than elves or mortal humans, but they deliberately bound themselves within mortal flesh. Why? To limit their power, to prevent them from dominating Middle-earth through sheer force. In other words, the Valar stripped Gandalf of his true power and imprisoned him in the body of a fragile old man. His immortal essence was crammed into a vessel of flesh and bone that aged, weakened, and suffered. He could feel pain now, cold, hunger, exhaustion. For the first time in eons, Gandalf knew what it was to be weak. This was not a gift, it was a punishment, a prison sentence designed to humble the proud Maiar. And worse still, he had to accept it, knowing that if he refused, the Valar might never offer him another chance. He might be left behind entirely while his enemy grew stronger. So Gandalf accepted his chains. He accepted his imprisonment in mortal flesh. He accepted his exile to a world he feared, to face a foe he dreaded. And he has never spoken of how much that decision cost him. Gandalf arrived at Mithlond, where he was welcomed by Glorfindel, his friend from Valinor, and Círdan the shipwright, who possessed Narya, one of the 3 elven rings of power. And then something interesting happened. Círdan, one of the wisest beings in Middle-earth, took one look at Gandalf and decided to give him the Ring of Fire. He recognized something in the old wizard, a hidden strength, a veiled power. Quote from the Silmarillion. And Círdan perceived who it was and said, "Welcome, my lord Gandalf. Welcome most heartily. I have longed to see thee." But why did Círdan give Gandalf the ring? Was it truly because he recognized his power? Or was Círdan testing him? Was he trying to see if Gandalf would be corrupted by it, just as Saruman would be corrupted by power later? The Ring of Fire, Narya, was meant to inspire hope and courage in the hearts of men, to kindle resistance against despair. Yet Gandalf took it and kept it hidden for thousands of years. He never used it openly. He never revealed its power until the very darkest hour. Why? Did he fear what the ring might do to him? Or did he simply not care enough about the suffering of Middle-earth to use its power earlier? But Gandalf didn't immediately use this power to fight Sauron. Instead, he waited. For thousands of years, he wandered Middle-earth. Unlike Saruman, Gandalf did not take up a single permanent residence and never went to the east, apparently restricting his activities to the westlands of Middle-earth. He stayed in the comfortable lands of the Shire, of Rivendell, of the homes of men and elves who offered him hospitality and respect. He was safe there. He was celebrated. They called him Mithrandir, the Grey Pilgrim. They told stories about him. They offered him food and shelter and companionship. And all the while, in the dark lands to the east, Sauron was rebuilding his empire. He was safe. He was comfortable. And while he wandered, Sauron grew stronger. The shadow spread like a plague across the lands. Mirkwood became a place of terror and despair. Men fell into darkness and became the Nazgul, those dread servants of the enemy. Cities fell. Kingdoms crumbled. Entire peoples were enslaved or destroyed. And where was Gandalf? In the Shire, delighting hobbits with his fireworks, telling stories to children, playing with halflings as if the world were not burning around him. For 2,000 years, Gandalf ignored the growing darkness. He did not call for aid from the Valar. He did not rally the peoples of Middle-earth to stand against Sauron. He simply waited. Eventually, Gandalf discovered the truth. The mysterious necromancer terrorizing Mirkwood was indeed Sauron himself, risen to power once again. He rushed to the White Council, a gathering of the most powerful beings in Middle-earth, and urged them to attack. But Saruman, the leader of the wizards, convinced the council otherwise. They would wait, they would watch, they would do nothing. And Gandalf, the ancient being who had existed since creation, who knew Sauron intimately, who understood the true threat better than anyone alive. Gandalf accepted this decision. The wizard who had lived for thousands of years, who had learned from the Valar themselves, allowed nearly 1,000 years to pass, while his enemy rebuilt his fortress and multiplied his armies. Some might call it caution. Others might call it complicity. Some might even suggest that Gandalf wanted it this way, that perhaps, deep down, he preferred to wait for Sauron to make his move rather than risk direct confrontation. After all, if Gandalf truly desired to stop Sauron, he could have. He possessed the power. He possessed the knowledge. He possessed the will. And yet he chose to wait. Here's something many fans don't know about Gandalf's time as an old man in Middle-earth. As Gandalf the Grey, much of Alorin's previous existence was shrouded in shadow and forgetfulness. His home in Valinor, his friends among the Valar, his daily business as a Maya, most of these would be uncallable to him. The memories were there, locked away behind a veil that he could not penetrate. Sometimes he would catch glimpses, a familiar scent, a particular shade of light, a turn of phrase. And for a moment, he would remember. Then the veil would fall again, and he would be cast back into confusion. Gandalf didn't remember his own past, the wise being who had existed since creation, who had learned from the Valar themselves, had been stripped of his memories, along with his power. Can you imagine such a fate? To have lived for eons, to have accumulated knowledge and experience beyond measure, and then to have it all taken away from you, to wander the world as an old man, fumbling through existence, never quite sure who you really are. For over 2,000 years, Gandalf was essentially a prisoner in his own mind. He was like a man who had suffered a terrible head injury, forced to piece together his identity from fragments and whispers. But as Gandalf the White, much if not all of the shroud was removed, and clear memories of his past would be as if they happened yesterday. After his death in Moria, after his fall into the depths and his subsequent resurrection, the Valar restored him completely. The veil lifted, the memories returned in a flood. And suddenly, Gandalf remembered everything. He remembered Valinor in all its terrible beauty. He remembered the Valar and their judgments. He remembered the music of the Ainur. He remembered the very foundations of the world. And he remembered Sauron, not as some distant threat, but as an intimate enemy, a being he had known in ages past. A Maya who had chosen evil when Gandalf had chosen, or been forced, to choose good. This suggests something profound and disturbing. The Valar not only imprisoned Gandalf in a mortal body, they erased his mind. They took away his memories of Valinor, of his true friends, of his real nature. They did this deliberately, as part of his punishment, as part of his exile. They wanted Gandalf to be humble, to suffer, to understand what it meant to be lost and confused, just as the peoples of Middle-earth were lost and confused in the face of darkness. It was a harsh lesson, designed to teach compassion through forced ignorance. It was only after his death in Moria, his fall into darkness while fighting the Balrog, his battle in that terrible place between the world and the void, that he was fully restored. Only in death did Gandalf finally remember everything. Only in death was he freed from the prison of forgotten memories. And one must wonder, did Gandalf choose to fall into darkness with the Balrog? Did he know that death was the only path to restoration? Or was his fall a desperate act of defiance, a final act of courage that inadvertently led to his redemption? We will never know, for Gandalf never spoke of those final moments before the fall. He kept that secret locked in his heart. There's a part of Gandalf's history that remains almost completely unexplained. After his resurrection as Gandalf the White, something profound changed. He immediately pursued his mission with new vigor. He abandoned his caution. He abandoned his reluctance. He became a force of action and determination. But what did he do during those lost years in limbo? What did he experience in that place between life and death? In those moments when his spirit hovered between the world of the living and the realm beyond, what truths were revealed to him? The books tell us almost nothing. Gandalf emerged from death with perfect recall of his true nature, restored to his full power as a Maya. But we never learn what happened in between. We never learn who or what brought him back, or whether he had a choice in the matter. Did he simply wake up on the shores of the timeless halls? Did the Valar summon him and restore him with some new directive? Or did something else happen, something far darker and more strange? Did Gandalf bargain with forces beyond our understanding to return to Middle-earth? Did he make promises to entities we cannot fathom? By the time he returned as Gandalf the White, he desired to see Valinor at the time of the trees and Feanor through the Palantir, suggesting he had clear, vivid memories of his past. But these were memories of a distant, almost unimaginably ancient past. Memories of the First Age, thousands of years before even the events of The Hobbit. Memories of times when the world was young and beautiful, before darkness had spread its shadow across the lands. These memories haunted him. They made him desperate. They made him determined in a way he had never been before. For the first time since his arrival, Middle-earth, Gandalf acted with purpose and urgency. He gathered the Fellowship. He pursued the Ring. He fought with a ferocity that surprised all who knew him. It was as if the return of his memories had awakened something within him. Something fierce, something desperate, something almost vengeful. And we must ask ourselves, what did Gandalf see when he looked through the Palantir? What visions were shown to him? Did he see Sauron as he truly was? Did he see the full extent of the enemy's power? Or did he see something else entirely, something that terrified him so much that it drove him to action despite his fear? The truth is, we will never know. Gandalf kept those visions to himself. He told no one what he saw. He simply acted, and in his actions, he saved Middle-earth. But at what cost? What secrets did he carry with him, locked away in his restored memories, never to be shared with anyone. When Gandalf finally returned to full consciousness as the White, he pursued Sauron with singular determination. He united the kingdoms of men. He guided the Fellowship. He orchestrated the gathering of the forces of the West. He moved through the world like a force of nature, sweeping aside obstacles, inspiring hope where there had been only despair. But was this truly his doing? Or was he being guided by forces beyond his understanding, forces that had erased his memories in the first place? Was Gandalf acting of his own will, or was he simply a tool in the hands of the Valar, moving according to a script written by beings far more powerful than himself? Consider this. Gandalf never faced Sauron directly. Despite being one of the most powerful beings in all creation, despite possessing the Ring of Fire and being restored to his full power as a Maya, Gandalf never engaged Sauron in battle. He never wielded the One Ring. He never used his full power as a Maya to confront his ancient enemy. Instead, he sent hobbits, small, weak creatures that no one expected to matter. He gambled everything on the weakest possible solution. He essentially sacrificed hobbits, Frodo and Sam foremost among them, in hopes that they might succeed where he refused to fight. Was this wisdom, or was it still fear? The same fear that had made him reluctant to accept his mission in the first place. Was Gandalf truly choosing to guide the hobbits because he believed in their strength? Or was he simply too afraid of Sauron to confront him directly, even with his full power restored? The reality is that Frodo suffered tremendously on his quest. He was scarred by the ring. He was tormented by the weight of the burden. He nearly died countless times. And all of this happened because Gandalf refused to act directly. Frodo's suffering was the price paid for Gandalf's fear. Quote from the letters of Tolkien: "Actually, I had a much more adult idea of the relationship between Gandalf and Frodo than the filmmakers seem to have had. I thought of Gandalf as deliberately manipulative, using Frodo and the hobbits as tools to achieve his ends." Some scholars have interpreted Tolkien's words to suggest that Gandalf was far more calculating and manipulative than most readers realize. He didn't simply guide the Fellowship with a grandfatherly wisdom. He orchestrated events. He made decisions that would cause suffering to innocent creatures. He was willing to let hobbits die if it meant achieving his larger goal. He was willing to risk the lives of elves, men, and dwarves to pursue his singular vision of victory. Gandalf was not the kindly grandfather we remember. He was a Maya of ancient power, pursuing an agenda that may have involved far more moral compromise than anyone suspected. In the end, Gandalf succeeded. He became a legend, but the cost of his victory was high. After over 2,000 years in Middle-earth, his mission was over, and his homecoming to Valinor was nigh. On 29th of September, 3021, he met Frodo at the Grey Havens, ready to take the White Ship over the sea to Aman. He sailed away from Middle-earth, never to be seen again. But here's what most fans don't realize. Gandalf wasn't leaving because his work was done. He was leaving because he was no longer bound to Middle-earth. His time as a servant of the Valar had ended. His exile was complete. And yet, we must ask, was Gandalf's departure truly the end of his story? Or was it merely the beginning of something new? What awaited him in Valinor? Did the Valar praise him for his success? Or did they question his methods? Did they ask him about the suffering he had caused? Did they demand to know why he had waited so long to act? Did they interrogate him about his time in Middle-earth, extracting every memory, every thought, every secret he had kept hidden? We never learn what he told the Valar about his time in Middle-earth. We never learn whether his memories, the ones restored to him in death, brought him joy or torment. Did he speak of his friendship with Frodo? Did he speak of his fear of Sauron? Did he speak of his doubts and uncertainties? Or did he simply disappear into Valinor, his story ending, his secrets buried forever in the Undying Lands? Gandalf sailed west, back to the Undying Lands, and took those secrets with him forever. The White Ship carried him across the seas, away from Middle-earth, away from the world of men and hobbits and elves. He passed beyond the circles of the world, back to Valinor, to the land where he had been born at the beginning of time. And there, in that place beyond death and suffering and time itself, Gandalf finally found peace. Or did he? We will never know, for no one who sails west ever returns to tell what they have seen. Gandalf's final fate remains one of the great mysteries of Tolkien's world. And perhaps that is how he preferred it. Perhaps Gandalf wanted to take his secrets to the grave, to carry them beyond the circles of the world, to hide them where no mortal creature could ever uncover them. And that brings us to the end of this exploration into the dark history of Gandalf. If you found this investigation into the wizard's mysterious past intriguing, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. What do you think happened to Gandalf in those lost years? What secrets does he carry with him to Valinor? Share your theories in the comments below. Do you believe Gandalf was truly as noble as we remember? Or was he far more manipulative and self-serving than the tales suggest? Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.